This is Nolan Xavier Wells. Now, we unfortunately know his name because he died just a few days ago on a remote island off the coast of Mississippi, and this is an island with no cell service. He was there with 3 of his friends. Here they are. Now, we don't know what happened yet. The investigation is ongoing, and we need to let the facts come out. But forgive me if this already sounds familiar.
There's 10,000 whites coming to kill me. And in those 10,000, or let's say here's 10,000 rattlesnakes coming to bite me. And in those 10,000, there was 1,000 that didn't mean no harm. And I knew there was a good 1,000 snakes out there, but they all look alike. Now, what should I do? Should I keep the door open and let the 10,000 in, hoping that the 1,000 will unite and save me and one bite will kill me? Or should I just be safe and shut the door?
Everybody uses pattern recognition in some way to get the advantage, right? Like in some sort of way, they're using it so that way they can understand the other side. They can understand the people that they're opposing. The entire architecture of modern society, right, is built on recognizing patterns and making decisions on those patterns that you have recognized. As a former counselor, we used to call that cycles of behavior. And you would still just notice and recognize what a person is or isn't doing in whatever way that they're doing it, right? But it seems like when black people largely do it, that's prejudice. Well, this is Society Breakdown. Peace, 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 and blessings. What's good? This is your boy Seven, Inglewood Zone right now in your zone, and this is another episode of Society Breakdown, where we do a little bit of analysis into the cultural diaspora. And today is no different, because today we're looking at patterns, pattern recognition, things that you see, and the decisions that are made based on those patterns, right? But before we get into that too much, I want to kind of differentiate what a pattern is versus prejudice. Because I know some people are already ready to hop in the comments and start talking about, no, you're talking about prejudice. Patterns, just recognizing the patterns. So a pattern recognizes or asks basically what has happened repeatedly, right? That's a pattern. What is happening in a cycle? Like you can almost count on it, predict it. You can tell that it's coming. That's what a pattern is. That's a cycle of behavior. That's what I'm talking about when I say patterns, right? Prejudice assumes that every individual is going to be the same. So I saw one person do a thing. So that means that thing applies to all of the people who are like that person. You dig? I just want to make sure we got some things clear before we go on, right? But we see patterns that are being applied to us and on us at all times, right? We see it from, all kinds of institutions. We see it in banks, right? Banks will look at your application loans, look at your credit score, look at your debt ratio, and that could be the same as your white counters. But somehow the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau recognized in 2023 that black applicants are denied mortgages at twice the rate of their white counters. And the pattern that the bank sees as a result of this is risk, right? That's what they say. But the pattern that we see is that the door has been locked for generations and you only let certain people in when they either meet the sniff test, the brown paper bag test, or whatever other test that you have arbitrarily applied. And that's no different than what we see with home appraisals, right? There was a black homeowner in Denver, I believe, who had a home that was appraised for $350,000. Affluent, nice little area where most of the homes were like $500,000 or more. But hers in particular came up as $350,000. So then she had to remove her personal items within the home, get a white friend to come in and pose as if the home was theirs, get a second appraisal, and now the home is appraised at $550,000. $200,000 difference. Same house, different face at the door. That's a pattern right there. You see what I'm saying? That's not a coincidence. We see it in crime too. Like, we're giving statistics about black crime rates without the context of over-policing, economic exclusion, redlining, generational wealth, all that, we don't get the benefit of any of that stuff, right? And I know because this is a conversation that I have with relatives who don't have the same point of view as I do. And even when those conversations, and they'll talk like, oh, I look at things from a deeper perspective. I want to make sure I get all the information before I make my judgment, which is still wrong. And then I'll say, okay, cool. So then we can talk apples to apples, because I have also done the research. And then when I start talking about things that I've unearthed in the research that lead to, hey, this thing led to this thing, which now leads to the thing that you're complaining about, suddenly they have no idea what I'm talking about, which illustrates, honestly, that they just wasn't doing the research. But what I'm saying is, unfortunately, they're no different than the white people that I have the same conversations with and same debates with, right? Because they show you the output and then they hide the input. You know, they only show you the results. And because my relatives want to agree with those results because they align with the mindset that they already have, they don't feel it necessary to look any further because their ego's probably been satisfied by the headline alone, right? But when you ask about the pattern that created the pattern, suddenly they say, you're making excuses. We see the same shit, insurance, they set your premiums up based on your zip code, right? If you're in a major black zip code, you get a higher rate than in a major white zip code. If you're in an area with mostly kids, you get a higher rate than you do when an area with mostly seniors. So we get that. We see that all the time. And it's called territorial rating, right? And in practice, it's just redlining with a different name. We see it in airport security. Like they pull over the black people all the time disproportionately, and they have them screened, right? We got to get the additional screening. But who's the ones that's bringing over the drugs most of the time? Ain't that what you're looking for? What are you looking for if you are pulling us over all the time and searching us? What you think we got? Is that sack really going to satisfy your quota better than the keys that you letting go through? I'm just wondering. We see this in so many other places and practices. And we see this in employment. We see this in healthcare. We see these patterns in various industries all around us all the time. And it's like every single one of these institutions is running on pattern recognition, right? They built systems specifically designed to identify and act on them. But when black people look at those same institutions and recognize the pattern of what they've done to us, then suddenly we're hit with, why are you being so negative? Not everything is about race. You guys are being so judgmental. You have to judge us as individuals. We're not a collective. We're one of the good ones. And it's like, we are the only group in America that's required to go blind in order to be considered reasonable. To the point, look, I've been thinking about this term, right? It's called borrowed eyes.
I want those things you see through.
Our own lying eyes betray us all the time, to the point that we have to borrow theirs. So we have to use their eyes to see ourselves so we can understand their side. You see? Obviously, that's the way that it goes, because that's the only way that we can see things their way and be calm about it. But even in that, here's what I noticed. They don't just want us to borrow their eyes when it comes to how we see ourselves. They want us to borrow their eyes when it comes to how we see them. They want us to see their individual actions and not their institutional results. They want us to be the only people on earth for whom pattern recognition constitutes prejudice. Our own lying eyes betray us, you see, to the point that we have to borrow theirs just to be calm about it. But to be fair and to be quite clear, I'm out of that business. I'm done borrowing. We don't need to borrow anything from people that charge interest anyway. Borrow some eyes, they charge your arm and leg.
I want those things you see through.
This is crazy.
Okay, I'm done.
But no, they act like we're not supposed to see these patterns, right? So, Tamla Horsford, 40 years old, married woman of 5, only black woman in this, all mothers. It was a football mom sleepover in Forsyth, Georgia. Mind you, Forsyth, Georgia is a place where all the black people were violently expelled in 1912. And that stayed in place until about the 1980s. But she was found dead in the backyard the morning after they had their party, right? Everybody else went home. The GBI did some investigations. The phones were wiped. New phones appeared. No charges filed. Case closed. The pattern we recognize is that there's only one black person in that space. Something went wrong. Nobody saw anything. And the case was closed. That's what we see, right? That's what we see. Kendrick Johnson, 17-year-old, found rolled up inside a gym mat in his high school in Georgia, 2013. The official cause of death was an accidental suffocation. How do you accidentally get suffocated and have no organs inside of you and you're stuffed with newspaper?
How, Sway?
How are you even deemed accidentally suffocated when you have no organs and they are replaced with newspaper? Just saying. That was the official narrative, right? No charges. Case closed. What we see is black body found suspiciously in some circumstances that we don't understand. The investigation raised more questions than answers. Case closed. Which brings us to Nolan Xavier Wells, 18-year-old young man, wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. On July 4th, just a couple days ago, he was on Horn Island, which is an island just south of Mississippi. The only black kid with his white friends. His phone came home. He didn't. His friends thought that he caught a ride home from a barrier island, which was accessible only by water, right? The investigation is ongoing. So, we don't know everything that's going on. We are also waiting on the results of the autopsy since the body has been recovered. But since then, all 3 boys in the picture with him have wiped their social media. All of it. And interestingly enough, all 3 have lawyers. And do you know something that's really interesting about these 3? All 3 of these young men who are in the picture with Xavier? Not one of these 3, not one of his friends, right? Not one of them said anything remotely to acknowledge their friend. To remotely acknowledge their friend. He just passed. This is your friend. Ain't this your friend? I was in college. I had a friend who passed. Shout out to Dennis. Rest in peace. I was majorly affected by, and I only knew him a couple months. I only knew the guy a couple months. But he had that much of an impact where I was affected. And here is somebody that, these kids were playing Little League football together. They grew up together. And not one of your friends makes a rest in peace post? All them years together? Not one rest in peace post. To be quite frank, not one of these 3 young men made it known that they gave a single fuck. Now, maybe that's because, and maybe it's a good thing. I guess it's good that one of them was the son of a judge while they did God knows what in an area with no cell coverage from which only the man's phone returned. Right now, we don't know what's happening with Nolan. We don't know what happened to Nolan. We're just waiting on the facts. But we do know what patterns look like. And to be quite honest, we've seen this movie before. So look, black people are not asking you to convict anybody without evidence. We're not asking you to be bullies, right? We would never ask that. We have always asked for fairness. We have always sought equality, that freedom and all that other stuff that you talk about. Sure, yeah, that stuff is cool. Just give us fairness, and we can work with the rest after that. But y'all won't even be fair, right? So when we are recognizing patterns of behavior, cycles of behavior that are taking place, patterns that we're zeroing in on, and you act like, I don't see it. I don't know what are you talking about? When you start doing that, that's when we have a problem, because we're asking you to recognize and understand why we see this pattern, because we didn't invent it, but we all see it. Don't you see it? I see it. But we inherited this, to be quite honest. And it's like it keeps showing up. Shit like this keeps showing up. In a Forsyth County, in a Georgia high school, in a Mississippi barrier island on the 4th of July. And ironically, that's the only holiday that's supposed to be about that freedom that y'all talk about all the time. So while I don't really have any anymore, I'm not sitting here telling black people not to have white friends. And I'm not telling you to live in fear either, right? Just like Muhammad Ali, I believe there are good ones out there. I just haven't found any. Anyway, but Muhammad Ali also had a point when he was talking about how difficult it is to find the good ones, ironically, for the same reason that some men say it's hard to find a good woman. Because if the good women are friends with the hoes, then how do we know the hoes from the good women? Same thing with the snakes. I'm just saying, if you know the good snakes in the, I'll stop. But for real, the same goes for this. And again, maybe your discernment skills are better than mine, and if so, kudos. But either way, I think we can agree on a few things, right? You should know who you are, know where you are, know who is around you, know how you're getting home, have a plan to get home that doesn't depend on somebody else, especially if they're unwilling to execute it. And I'm not saying this because every space is dangerous. I'm saying it because we recognize patterns. We see this shit. And our eyes, our own lying eyes, have been trying to tell us for years what the hell this is. Some of us see it and recognize it more than others, but I think we all can see what the hell this is, right? And maybe that's what we've been missing the whole time. Honestly, I think it's time we started listening to our eyes. So maybe don't ignore the patterns, but don't skip the evidence either. But that's where we're going to leave this one. Go ahead and leave me your comments. Let me know what you thought about this episode. What do you think about pattern recognition in general? And let me know what you think about it in connection with Tamla and Kendrick, and most notably, Nolan. Rest well to Nolan. And I hope his family somehow is comforted. I definitely hope they all get justice. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Take care of yourself and others. Be ferociously dangerous while you do. Peace. And I'm out.